Now that my water is dry here, I can start adding my details. The first thing I'm going to do is add this little oval at the top to make it look like the top of my water. So I'm just going to take a little bit of black. Again, not too much on my brush, it should just be on the bristles. And I'm actually going to trace over this curved line at the top really carefully, making sure to hold my brush straight up and down and barely touching the paper so that I'm making smoother lines. Once I get to the other side, I can continue my oval. It'll come down and come right back across the other side. If I start to run out of paint, I can go ahead and reload my brush, which means just put a tiny bit more paint on my brush and continue going. All right, so that looks like it's the top of my water now. And I can begin to add my fish. So I'm gonna clean my brush, wipe it on the side of my cup. And I can use this paper again just to sort of help me come up with the outline. Now I'm not gonna put any details. I'm just going to pick the color of my fish and just make the outline. No details yet. I've got to actually have the back of the fish or the background of the fish painted. So I'm gonna use a little bit of orange for that. Again, just on my bristles. And I'm going to follow my steps here. Let's see if I move it here, maybe we can see both. And I'm going to start by making sort of this football shape like this. And I could even make it a little bit larger because if it's too small, it's really difficult to paint. And if you're finding that, it might just mean that you need to make your fish larger. So I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger than I was first planning. And then over to this side, it doesn't matter that I did this in the middle because I'm just going to be filling it in with paint anyway. So then I'm going to fill that in like this. My next step was to add the tail. So I'm going to make it come out this way from the body and it's going to go the opposite direction down here. Then I just connect them. All right. And then I'm going to add the fin next right here. And then maybe this lower fin as well. So I've got that fish done. I can't add any details until it's dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my other fish as well. Again, I'm going to make this one larger than I was planning before because sometimes it's really, really tough to paint small objects because our paintbrush doesn't have a thin point like a pencil does. So we oftentimes have to make our projects bigger than we wanted to in the first place. All right, there's his little tail. And I'll add his fin, his lower fin. There we go. And I'm gonna let them dry before I add anything else to it. Now looking at my picture, I can go ahead and start working on the pebbles on the bottom. For that, I decided I wanted purple and dark blue. So I'm just going to be taking these colors here, and I'm just going to make these dots along the bottom with both colors. They don't need to be perfect because they'll be overlapping. And I'm just going to cover the whole bottom with it. Not pressing down all the way. I'm just making sure that I have these round-ish shapes that go along the bottom. I'm gonna really fill it in. I don't want too much of that light blue still showing. When I have the amount that I want, I can go ahead and use my other color too and just try to fill in those light blue spaces that I'm still seeing. Make it look like colored pebbles here. All right, so once I have that filled in, I can go ahead and add my plant that I have on the bottom. So I clean off my brush and I'm going to add this plant right here. Again, as always, I never put too much paint on my brush. It should always only be on the bristles here. And this doesn't have to be perfect because I'm pretty sure it'll look like a plant no matter how I really do it. So I'm just gonna do some squiggly lines going up. And maybe there's this one that comes out the side. I could even add to my picture and change it a little bit and add another little piece of the seaweed coming off on the side, okay? And then lastly, I see that I have bubbles on my pictures here. So I'm going to add a few bubbles. So I clean off my brush, add a little bit of white, not too much, And I can put some bubbles coming up from my fish. Now, something that's interesting with this kind of fishbowl, we sometimes have a shine mark that goes down on the side here. So I'm just going to put from underneath this oval on top, I'm going to put a line of white to make it look like it's reflecting light. And I'm going to make that come down. And it might come almost to the bottom, but not all the way. And as it gets closer to the bottom, it'll just get thinner and thinner. And that's going to make it look like it's reflecting light a little bit. I can also put a little bit of white along the top here. Now I'm going to try to make sure it's really thin. I don't want it to be too thick here. And that's just going to give it the appearance that it's glass and it has a reflection. Okay, and when these are dry, I can come back and paint more details.